Hello and welcome to part 2 of my Float Like a Butterfly, Sting Like a Bee art series. If you haven't already, please check out part 1 in case there are any tips that I covered there but maybe missed here. Alright, it's time for another relaxing drawing video, equipped with helpful tips, so grab a stylus or a pencil and draw with me. I'm starting off with a sketch that I drew on my iPad Pro in the Adobe Photoshop Sketch app. I did a quick ink sketch just to get the idea down, and I only drew half of the butterfly because their wings are supposed to be identical anyway, so I just duplicated and flipped it. Alright, that was my rough sketch, and now I'm going to do a refined pencil sketch to correct the letters and spacing to my liking. To help speed up the refined sketch process and make sure the styles match, I have 2 layers of lettering beneath my pencil sketch. There's the finished Float Like a Butterfly lettering and the rough ink sketch of Sting Like a Bee, both set to a low opacity. Here I'm using the Y from butterfly as a style reference, so I can make sure that the G looks like it belongs in the same family. You can see me air tracing here to get my muscle memory correct. Just checking the angles and the ascender height, being a bit of a perfectionist here. It's always been hard for me to just be loose with my art, but the point of this drawing is to help me be more loose and less of a perfectionista. I'm sketching out options to give the G a prettier swash. I'm comparing the baselines, and I see that on the Float Like a Butterfly art, the baseline is more irregular, and I want Sting Like a Bee to match that a little more. It gives it more character. Now, time for the fun part. Time to ink this baby. When I'm not in a good sitting or drawing position, it's difficult to draw good letters or curves. I know that Photoshop CC 2018 and 19 has that smoothing tool that's supposed to help you draw better curves, but I drew this lettering a couple years ago and I was using Photoshop CC 2015. Plus, I don't use that smoothing tool much anyway because I want to keep my muscle memory so that I can still draw good letters and curves with a pencil and paper when I need to. I'm not knocking it, I just don't want to have to rely on it. It's cool for some things. But if you're not a perfectionist and you want to just get stuff done quickly, I would say go ahead and try it. Sometimes you have to do your letters in pieces if you struggle to get it all in one stroke, and that's okay. We just want the end result to look good, right? If you watched part 1 of this art collection video series, then you'll remember hearing me talk about why I cut the letter from the layer before moving it around. It's to avoid distorting the pixels. Then I merge it back down when I'm done moving it. It's so satisfying to draw thick strokes on top of thin strokes. A quick way to thicken a stroke while keeping the shape of the letter is to load a selection of the layer's contents by pressing Command and clicking on the layer's icon. Then use the arrow keys to nudge the selection to the side, left or right, and paint into the empty space you just made by nudging the selection over. I feel like a lot of times people don't share their process because it's ugly. It's long, there's a lot of trial and error, and it isn't perfect like the final art is. They show the end result because it's much more appealing. It's instant gratification. I love this 300 ppi ink brush so much. It's my fave. It's also the one I added to my Gumroad shop as a pay what you want brush. So if you want to download it and see how great it is, follow the link in the description box. I went a little heavy-handed with the thick stroke of the A, so I'm using that trick I mentioned earlier, but this time I'm using it to reduce the thickness of a stroke while keeping the same shape I drew. I selected the layer contents and inverted the selection with Command-Shift-I, then nudged the selection outline a bit to the left and erased away a sliver of the stroke. Even though I traced some of my letters, it wasn't exactly a copy and paste job. The letters look like they belong together but are alternate characters. Just checking the angles and cohesiveness. I like the old undo button. It's a quick way to compare what you changed to what was there before. So it's unfortunate that Adobe got rid of it in Photoshop CC 2019, or at least that's what I heard. I haven't updated from 2018 yet because I don't want to disrupt my workflow by getting away from the tools I'm used to. Not yet, anyway. I feel like companies do this all the time. They fix things that aren't broken. Like Apple. Why in the world would they change the keys on the Magic Keyboard? Now I have to look down to make sure I'm hitting the correct arrow and function keys. It's so annoying. I could go on a whole rant about that, but I won't. For the B lettering, I'm just going to touch it up instead of redrawing it because it looks close enough to where I want it to be. I think when I drew it in Adobe Sketch, I may not have had it on the highest resolution, so the inky edges look slightly different, but it's not bad. It just needs a couple of fixes here and there. And I use my same brushes in that app that I'm using here, which is great. Did you know that you could select a layer by holding Command and clicking on the artwork? So if I had a bunch of unnamed layers and I wanted to select the sketch, but I was on the inked layer, I would just hold Command and click directly on the sketch to make that layer active. I love sketching. It's such a relaxing and freeing experience. Like, you're free and you're just sketching. It doesn't have to be perfect, you're just going at it. I recently made some new pencil brushes for a project I was working on, but I haven't put them up for sale yet, probably because I want to add more to the collection. Maybe I'll just put it up in my shops anyway for a really low price, then increase it as I add more brushes. I drew this while looking at a search results page of bees, which is why it doesn't follow my loose sketch too much. Of course, I'm drawing an ornate, abstract representation of a bee rather than a realistic one, but the references definitely helped decide where my ornate designs went. For my bee, I thought it would be cool to give it honeycomb textures in the wings and body. And just like the rough sketch, I'm drawing one side, then flipping a duplicate of it. To do that, I entered Free Transform with Command T. Then I mirrored it by right-clicking and choosing Flip Horizontal. Then I dragged the flipped wing into place. At this stage, I had marked up a bunch of things I wanted to correct. So instead of making you sit through 25 minutes of cleanup and second guessing, I'm just gonna skip right over this portion, and you'll just trust that I did the cleanup. I wanted to try adding some texture to this bee to see how it would look. I really liked the way it turned out in the end. Here's the flip trick again, but this time I entered Free Transform, Command T, then I mirrored it by holding Shift and dragging the reference point to the guide in the center of the bee. Next, I right-clicked it, chose Flip Horizontal, and voila! It's on the other side. To texture the bee, I'm using brushes from my lettering brush set and my texture brushes pack, which are both available in my Gumroad and Creative Market shops. I'm going in with my watercolor pencil from my unreleased pencil set that I mentioned earlier, and I'm using the watercolor pencil to add a little bit of shading to the honeycomb wings. And here's the finished artwork. Like the last one, I put it on paper texture and made it look even more inky by giving it wet edges and some depth. I inverted the colors of the artwork and discovered this really cool colorway. Then I played around with it, added some glitter, and messed with the colors even more, and came up with all of these slightly different options. This Sting Like a Bee art was definitely my fave of the two. I just really like this one, with the queen bee, sting like a bee, and it's a queen. It's just lit. I hope you learned a thing or two or just enjoyed drawing with me today. If you did, please let me know by hitting the like button or leaving a comment. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.